Welcome to Leadership Unlocked, where we uncover the pivotal stories that shape extraordinary leaders. I'm Dusty Holcomb, and on this show, we don't just talk about leadership, we decode it. In every episode, we sit down with change makers who've walked through the fire, challenged the status quo, and emerged with wisdom worth sharing. These aren't just lessons, they're lived experiences, real moments that reveal the mindset, the resilience, and the clarity behind lasting impact. Today, you're going to hear one of those stories. So what do you do after quitting the job that everybody else thinks you should want? Maricella Herrera has the answer, and it's not what you expect. She went from banking in Mexico to the C-suite of Elevate Network, where she built a global community of women in leadership, and then she walked away on purpose. Now she's helping others navigate big, bold career moves with clarity and conviction. If you've ever wondered, is this all there is? This one's for you. Let's unlock what leadership looks like when you stop performing for others and start owning your own story. Let's get into it. This is Leadership Unlocked. One of the things that I wanted to start with, because you have such a fascinating journey, and we're going to unpack parts of it, I'm sure, but I'd love to know, what is a leadership principle or philosophy that you rely on today? It's one of your guiding principles that you live by, and then what's the story behind it?
I don't know if I have ever defined it as a leadership principle, but I am a true believer that you have to show up in the way that you want others to show up. So for me, it's always been being very transparent and authentic. I believe that that's the best way that you can actually reach people and understand that everyone is going in the same direction. So if you don't show a little bit of humanness, then as a leader, then you don't open the door for others to feel like they can be a little human. In terms of the story, like I used to say this at work sometimes. I remember the first time, this was a while ago, but I was having a bad day, like terrible day. It was just one of those. And I was in the office and I just got up and said, I'm leaving. Like, y'all, I'm leaving. I'm not having a good day. I need a little bit of a mental health break. And it's not good for any of you or for me to be here. Obviously, I, took my time, went for a run, came back, did my thing. But it opened the door for people to say, I'm not okay. I need a moment. I need a mental health day. I need to take a step back, which from what I learned afterwards from the people that, I'm still in touch and used to work with me at that time, they would not have done or felt open to do so if I hadn't shown that. So that's kind of where I come from.
I love it. Like showing up with that raw humanness first, like recognizing before anything else, first principles, we're all people and I have good days, bad days, just like anyone else. Why do you think it wouldn't have been safe until you mirrored the behavior that made it safe?
I think because we say, like, you hear this, right? Like you hear people and companies and bosses say, like, we care about our people and when you're on vacation, like make sure that you log off. But then you don't feel safe because you're seeing people, like when they're on vacation, the boss is logging in, is checking in. And so you feel like you have to mirror that behavior. And that's just, I think, the way that we can't be what we can't see. That's something we used to say a lot at Elevate about role models and about women specifically. Like if you don't see something, you're going to emulate that you see, that where you want to go to, right? And so I think that was it. I don't think that they felt unsafe. I just think that they didn't think it was even an option. Like it would have not crossed their mind.
I really like the way you just articulated that. It's not that it wasn't safe. They didn't know that was an option on the menu to be able to do until you mirrored it and said, hey, I need this. And that vulnerability as a leader, to be human, to be real, to be fallible. Like oftentimes, like everybody is in leadership. It's like, oh, you're always on stage, and yes, you are. But that carries with it a lot of weight, and it also carries with it a responsibility to make it safe, make it appropriate for others. And I've had bosses before where people were like, disconnect, how are you? And then like they're wearing you out.
Yep.
It's like you can't have both here. You can't care and then not actually have it show up in your behaviors.
And it's interesting, the idea of, I would say, integrity, right? Like integrity is like you act, you do as you say. Your words and what you're doing matches. It's not just like I say this, but I do the other thing. And so if you want to build that into your company and into any group, honestly, and just into your life as a human, that's kind of the point. And I'm not saying, be just come and just say whatever you want. Like obviously there's guardrails and you have to be professional and whatever it is, depending on the space that you're in. I was in a space where we were very casual. It's just about that. Like make your actions and your behaviors and your words match.
Yeah, I love that you were talking about integrity, and like there's no tension in integrity, right? It's not like you're balancing on a line. You are this. I'm doing what I say I'm going to do.
Right.
But in most of life and in most of leadership, there's always tension. Like you're always managing trade-offs. You're always thinking about what am I teaching? What am I learning? How am I exemplifying? But there's no tension in integrity. The intention that comes into play when your integrity is questioned, challenged, or external circumstances force you to take different paths. Well, I am like super excited to learn about your journey, because I'm sure that when you were a little girl, you said, I am going to be the baddest. Maybe you did actually say, I'm going to be a badass CEO of an organization that empowers women. And you made it happen. But like, tell me a little bit about your story and how you got to be where you were. And then we're going to go into how you got to be where you are.
It's so funny that you positioned it as like, when I was a little girl, because the first question I ask my guests in my podcast always is, what did you want to be when you were growing up? And because I do think it says a lot, and we forget that. I did not think I was going to be, first off, I never thought I was going to be working in like women in business and that space. That never even crossed my mind. The CEO of an organization, I think when I was a little older, it might have, but not really. Like maybe a CFO, because when I went in college, I kind of went that route. But honestly, when I was younger, what I wanted to be was a writer, what I loved, and to this day, I still love. So it kind of took a left turn. I remember when I was going to college, I said I was going to study basically the equivalent of like an English major, but a Spanish major. And everyone was like, what are you going to do with that? So moved over to something else and ended up first in marketing, then in finance. And yeah, no, it never crossed my mind. And in fact, even in my first job, which was in finance in Mexico, I did not, I never said, oh, I want to have my own business or I want to run a business. It was something that came about later, but I think it was also because I didn't know, right? Like I didn't know what I didn't know.
Did you have any mentors? Like sometimes we only see these things in the rearview mirror. We don't know that there are these outsized moments of influence are occurring in the moment, but we can see it in the rearview mirror. Did you have any mentors that you can look back on now and go, oh my goodness, if they hadn't leaned into me or created an inflection point within my journey, I might not be where I am today. Tell me about your mentor stories.
100%. I do. The one person I would say that's probably, I credit my work ethic I credit my work ethic a lot to also my upbringing, but who really taught me what work was my first boss. And I'm a stayer. So when I talk about the people I've worked for, you're going to see it's like one or two, because I've worked in very few places and stayed very long time. So the first was in Banamex, which is like Citi's Mexican subsidiary back in the day. And I remember I had just graduated college, looking for a job, come to an interview here. And the guy that's interviewing me, I had seen the name, was one of my teachers in college.
Oh, wow.
He didn't know. He did not remember me. He's like, I think I know you. And I'm like, yeah, I was in your class. And
you made a great impression.
Yeah. And it was really funny because I was like, okay, fine. I was super quiet when I was younger, like super quiet. And then, next time I saw him, like they called me for another interview and he's like, I went back and saw your stuff. And like, you're the only person who almost aced my class, but I would never give anyone an A or something like that. Basically, he hired me And he was a person I learned from. He was very, I wouldn't have said it at that point that he was my mentor. I say it like you said, it's kind of hindsight. Like once I left and started working at, or started business school, I kind of saw it more clearly. I worked with him for a long time. We were building a kind of new department inside a very big organization. So that was kind of the vibe. It was him, me, and like other people distributed in the country, but we were the two people in that area. And he was someone that I remember people would say like, "Oh God, you're working for that guy? Like, how are you handling it?" And to me, it would be like, I'm handling fine. Like, we get along very well. And I think I got my like transparency and directness from him because he was like that. He really impacted me both in the way that he would act. We would be putting together this credit reports to get big loans approved or whatever for very large housing developments. And I still to this day, I quote him. He would be like, "Don't tell me no," when the credit people, the risk people would be like, "No, this doesn't work." It's like, don't say no. Say, how do we make it work? And so now I do channel that a lot, and I used to tell my team that a lot. Sounds better in Spanish.
Yeah, this is the principal regret I have as being typical American is I'm not bilingual, and I know that it's within my control to change that, and I need to do it. But I'm so jealous of anyone who has multiple languages in their repository because they always say it sounds better in this other language, and I'm going, I don't have that.
Yeah, it's a good skill.
I'm curious, does he know that how much influence he had?
I don't know that he knows exactly how much. I'll send him this podcast. We've been in touch throughout the years. Another thing he did that really marked my way. There got to a point like the first year in, which doesn't usually happen, or 2 years in, whatever it was, but very early on, like I was in this role of credit analyst, and the department was growing, and so I had two routes I could go. I could go one route and stay in the city I was with him doing more like a relationship manager type of role, or I could go in a different route and keep going like back office and building other analysts and training other analysts. And my inclination was to go the quiet route, to stay kind of behind the scenes, train other people. He was the one that really pushed me to think about it and said, I think you're making a mistake and this is why. And I really thank him. I did not like being a relationship manager. That is not where I shine. But I learned a lot. And I learned a lot that would not have, if I hadn't done that, I probably wouldn't be here. So I could see, again, hindsight, how these things where he would very clearly tell me.
That's super cool. And you said you're a stayer. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But how long did y'all work together? How long did you work for that organization?
That was like 4 or 5 years. It wasn't, because then I came to business school. So probably if I hadn't come to business school, I would have stayed longer. But yeah, that was the deal.
So you go to business school. Why'd you decide to go to business school? And not just business school. You went to Columbia.
I always knew I was going to study. I love studying. I'm a nerd. Like I can't, like, it's hard to say, but I actually am very curious. So I do really enjoy that. So I always knew I was going to do a graduate degree. When I was younger, I thought it was going to be something, I don't know, sustainability. Like, I don't know, something more like, but again, and this also, my mentor, my brother, who's someone who I would consider my mentor and like an incredibly massive influence in my career. He's a very successful serial entrepreneur. Other people who I also admire were like, if you're going to do that, like if you're going to take the time to go to do a graduate degree and you're going to spend the money on doing this, you might as well do an MBA that will open more doors, like especially because I was a finance major, so it was like more specific, so like kind of go a little broader. And yeah, that's why I kind of decided on the MBA. Then Columbia, I did not want to come to the US to do my graduate degree. Funny enough, my dream school was London Business School. And it was, again, my boss at that time who said, you're dumb. Well, he didn't say it like that, but basically you're dumb if you don't actually at least try and apply. Like the best schools are there. Like, okay, yes, London Business School and IE, and like there's like a couple in Europe, but you have a big, massive group of schools that you're just letting to the side. So I took that into consideration, and here I am.
And here you are. I'm sure it sounds better in Spanish, but you're dumb. You should consider other things. Sounds pretty compelling. And like the influence that a person has at helping us see past our own blinders or see past our own capabilities, like we just don't recognize. Like that's super impactful. That's powerful. That's meaningful. I'm glad that he did that because now we can talk today.
I'm very grateful he did that, honestly.
So you go to Elevate, and I am building to knowing kind of not the end of the story, the next one where you had an inflection point, but like that, what took you there, and what was it that stoked your fires while you were there?
Yeah.
Like, because I can't think of a more purposeful, passion-driven, like purpose-aligning type of organization to be part of for someone like yourself. So what took you there, and what'd you do?
It's funny enough that it was luck in many ways, I would say. I was in business school, and like I said, I came from a finance background, and my thought was I'm going to keep going that route. And this is, I think, part of getting to know yourself that at that point, I think I wasn't there yet. I was here in the US at Columbia and thinking I'm going to go down the finance route. So kind of got into this mob mentality, groupthink, and went down the like investment banking. Now, when I think about it, and when I even talk to my friends, I was talking to a friend who was here, a friend from business school recently, and she's like, I don't understand why you did that. And honestly, I don't understand why I did that, because when I remember this, that was horrible. Like I hated every minute of it, just like the process of interviewing. There's good people, but also the people I was meeting were not people I actually felt like that's what I want my life to be like. Like, yes, you have a lot of pros, but also a lot of things that my personality didn't match. Mm-hmm. And up to this point, I would say values did not align, but I didn't know that at that point. So I went through a horrifying recruiting period during business school. And luckily enough, here you go again with mentors and inflection points. I met this woman due to, a friend that connected me to this Columbia alum who I thought was great. She was super smart. One of the first women really high up at Goldman Sachs back in the 90s. And she, we got along really well. I was doing a project while I was in school, like helping her build a business plan for 85 Broads, which is now Elevate. And I tell this story sometimes because at the end, I was kind of very close to joining a bank in Mexico, like an investment bank, like going back to Mexico. And I was having a call with the people who worked there. It was a very small bank, like very small investment bank. And they're like, great, the next step, like, honestly, like, the only thing we want is for you to come and meet the CEO. And, like, again, it's very small, but I need to ask you something first. I'm like, okay. And the question was, are you planning to get married in the next couple of years? Exactly. Exactly. That is the right reaction.
And if you're listening to this, it was a crazy, befuddled, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, why the failure look on my face.
That's the correct reaction. So I remember in my naive mind, I was like, no, like I got off that call. I'm like, something doesn't feel right. Like something's not. And I called Janet, who's a person I had met, the founder of 85 Broads. And I'm like, this just happened. And she's like, no, she was like, you understand that? No.
Like not only no, but hell no.
Right. Like, and so talking to her about it, she's like, why don't you just come work for me for a while? Like, just, I need someone that can help me kind of organize this, put this like passion project into more of a business. Try it out. Like, I know this is not like what you think you want to do, but I think that this would very much align with the things you care about. So like, why don't you try it out? And by that point, I had started taking more like social enterprise classes and things like that I was like, was what really drew me. So I said, I'll try it out for a year. And yeah, it was 11. So
You're a stayer.
I'm a
It's
stayer.
good.
I'm a stayer.
So you're at Elevate. What was, or not what was, but I guess what is the purpose of the organization, and how did that purpose align with you and your values?
So Elevate is the largest community for professional women. And the whole idea behind it was, can't speak for what it is now, but I'm sure it's pretty much the same alignment, to get more women into positions of leadership. The reason behind this, and I would say back then, it's not cool to use the words now, diversity, equity, and inclusion, but a lot of it was, how do we level the playing field, right? Like, how do we get more women to have power? Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of research about this, but when women have money and when women have power, it comes down to the community in a much faster and bigger way. So like 90% kind of goes back into the community. It's very significant. I do believe in the idea that we can't all think in the same way, right? Like you need that diversity of thought. And so if everyone looks the same, acts the same, you're not going to have that alignment. And so as I started at the beginning, you can't be what you can't see. That was part of it for me too. It was like, you know what? It's true. Like, you know what? I didn't know that there were these opportunities of jobs like this before. Can I help other people understand this? And I would say mostly it was that. Like, I had this kind of, I would not say at that point that I was like, I'm a feminist. I was a feminist, but I would have never said that. I come from like a much more conservative country that's very different. So for me, it was a little bit like, okay, I'll try this out. And then I started reading, and then I started learning, and then I started hearing, and then I started thinking of the stories, like, for example, the one I just told you about how I ended up there.
Yeah.
And that was like, there's some work to do here. So that's kind of how it ended up.
Well, it's so interesting. I love the way you framed it. Like, forget what's appropriate or in vogue in the times now, like labels. And I think, indictment of societies, we always fall in love with labels and programs as opposed to the reason. And the reason is, you can't be a good leader if you have an echo chamber around you and if you're only seeing the world through one lens. Like, you understand that you don't have all the information. You don't have all the truth. You need perspective. And, if everybody looks like you, thinks like you, has the same background as you, you are intentionally sub-optimizing your decision-making capabilities.
Yeah.
And it's not a woke thing. It's not a platform thing. It doesn't matter. It's like, first principle, how do we make better decisions? We get more perspectives around the table that give us the ability to create insight from information that's interpreted in a different way. So I love that you were getting to do that. I didn't know that it goes back, that funds go back to the community or resources go back to the community differently. That makes total sense to me hearing you say it, because value sets and the way people process information is different based on, all the differences in life. But I didn't know that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting. I haven't seen the data in a long time, but that to me was always fascinating. It was like the difference, that how things shape up when you have a woman with money versus no money, or with power versus no power, and how that like contributes to the way a company is run, a team is run, and how that also economically affects the rest of society. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty compelling. And it certainly gives you one more thing to think about the importance of having different perspectives around the table, or at the head of the table, to allocate resources. All right, so everybody has a defining moment, a big challenge, like dozens of them in my life, and I'm sure you have as well. What's one that happened from you from a leadership perspective that challenged who you were or made you take action or decision that moved your life in a different direction?
I have a podcast called Should I Just Quit My Job? Sorry.
Which I love, by the way. That is the single best podcast title I've ever heard. And in fact, I shared it with a mutual friend of ours, and she's like, oh my God, I need this. And then she binge listens to a bunch of episodes, but shit, I quit my job.
And the reason I did that, the reason the title, thank you first off, and the reason that title was it is because that's the only thing I could say for the first 2 weeks after I quit my 11-year job. It was like, I couldn't believe it. But it was, I would say that's the biggest inflection point and the biggest moment where I had to be like, I can keep being here. Actually, there's two. And it all kind of comes to that same point because a year before I quit, I was going to quit. I actually had told my boss I was quitting, the CEO at that point. And then a month later, she told me she was quitting.
Wait, she beat you to the punch. That's not fair.
I'm like, but wait, I don't think we both can, like, I don't think we can both just leave. At that point, I was the COO. I understand the company was going through a lot of transition. We had just come out of COVID. COVID had been so rough, particularly in something that is a community, right? That a lot of the value was in meeting in person. So it had been rough. For me, it was like I was getting to my 10-year mark. I kind of wanted to understand like what's next for me. And my plan was I'm quitting, but I'm like leaving next year. Like I'm stretching this out so that there's like a smooth transition. At the same time, the company was going through a change of ownership. The new owner, knowing all of the things that were happening, asked me to stay as the CEO. So that was a moment of a lot of questioning for me because on the one hand, I had made a decision that had cost me, like it was so hard to make. Right? I had finally said, I'm going to go and try something else. On the other hand, I had this opportunity to like step into a role that I never thought would be mine. And in all reality, like the CEO, very good before me, very good friend of mine to this day, but we had worked together for 8 years. She had been there for years and I didn't think she was going to leave. So like, I never thought like that's where I was going. So I had to think about the team. And I would say actually my team was the one that convinced me to stay in many ways, like the senior leadership team at that point, because there were so many things we wanted to do. Like I cared about the company to the point where I still joke I didn't have a last name. I was Maricella from Elevate. That was it. It had become such a part of my identity. So I just had to. I could not let that opportunity pass. And that was a big challenge. So for the next year, it was a very, very difficult time. And like I said, it wasn't that year was difficult. It's that it had had a trajectory since COVID of being a difficult time. For me, a lot of it was kind of dealing not only with the issues that I know were there, but like also, like I said, change of ownership. Like there were so many things external that were hard. And then there was me internally who I was like, I'm kind of burned out. Like I already I'm wrestling with this. What is it? I was also turning 40. So I like joke that it was like my midlife crisis. Everything happened at the same time. And I stayed probably longer than I should have. And I stayed because of the team. I stayed because I felt like I couldn't do this to the people that I've worked with for so long. I couldn't do this. Also, honestly, the customers, because in that type of company, right? Like it's a community. I knew a lot of the people there. I cared about them. I care to this day of a lot of the people that we were serving. And I'm a sayer, like we've said a few times. So like it was this very difficult moment of like, am I putting myself, my mental health, my sanity, my like desire to know who I am again without this thing first, or am I staying for all of these reasons? Like, am I staying for the right thing? So it was rough. It was really hard. I loved my time at Elevate. I really did. At that point, like I said, there was changing ownership too, so that there were like things were changing in a way that it was a good time for me to take a step back. It was really a hard decision. It took me a long time to make it.
It's interesting when hearing you walk through that and staying for the right reasons, your team and the purpose and the passion. And, you know, one of the things that I was, when I first met you and then learned a little bit about your background, what an incredibly affirming, purpose-driven organization to get to do what you're good at and to get to do it in a place where you believe in what it is. But there's this truism, and you're touching on it, at least the way I think about it, of you can't lead someone else if you haven't led yourself first. Like self-leadership precedes the ability to lead others in any organization. And you taking the time to get, your values dialed in. And, when you sit there and you think about, I'm losing my identity, or my identity is so wrapped up in what I do, which is a not uncommon thing. And it's frankly something I have been very guilty of throughout my career. It's to step away and to step back and go, first, who am I? I can only impact and influence the lives of others if I am true to myself, if I lead myself. And in some cases that people may be able to make that decision in their organization. You said, no, I need to change organizations. I am not what I do. I am why I do it. And I love that. I think that's frankly motivating and powerful and inspiring.
And, I actually talked to someone who was asking me, because now I become like the person where everyone, if they're thinking of leaving their job, they call me. And somehow I become
so
that.
You're the guru of, before I say, oh shit, I quit my job, let me talk.
If I thought I could have done that work, that like taking the space to get to know myself again, to get in alignment. And if I thought I could have done that while working, I would have stayed. But I knew I know myself. My self-awareness grew a lot. And by that point, I was pretty self-aware in the fact that I knew I would not give myself the space, because I knew I was dealing with a lot of hard situations within the company that were honestly really stressful, that I had to put a lot of my time, effort, mind, everything to it, because I felt like I needed to. Like I had that responsibility because of the people around me. And I wasn't going to allow myself the space. I was not going to give myself the time, the space, the energy. Like it was just not going to happen. I was just going to focus on what I knew I needed to focus. It was going to be almost like what's urgent and not necessarily what's important, right? And that is why I decided to leave like that, because if not, I was not going to be able to.
What was your process? You said the decision took a long time. Did you have a process that you walked through, or a decision framework, or was it more organic? Like, how did you wrestle with this weighty decision and then come to it?
I did not have a process. At that point, I actually had a coach, which was really helpful. That just happened organically, like someone I met, and she knew through Elevate, she knew I had just taken the CEO role and she wanted to help me. So she started coaching me. So she was very helpful. I'm also a person that goes to therapy, and I think everyone should be in therapy. So that was also very helpful. But as far as a process, I didn't really have one. It was more I had to think about like, okay, what type of risk can I take? Like, can I do this because I quit without having anything lined up? Can I take this risk? Once I knew that financially I could, then the rest was more like, can I emotionally detach myself from this? I felt like in many ways, I don't know, there was something that kind of just broke. It was just there. I remember the moment very clearly. I was walking in Central Park. I was extremely, I had had a rough day, extremely stressful. I had talked to our director of product, who was my kind of like sidekick, I would say, like person I was most close to working with. And there had been a moment of very, 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 like a lot of clarity that a lot of where the company was going was not where my values and ideas was, if that makes sense. I was in the CEO role, but at the same time, it's not my company, right?
Right.
So there was this moment where I just felt, I remember her telling me, she's like, well, that's not going to change. And I was like, you're right, that's not going to change, right? Like, I went for a walk and I was like, I need to change. Like, that's not going to change. I need to change. And I just need to go. So it broke. It was one of those like little things, like kind of, I don't want to say death by 1,000 cuts because that sounds really negative, but it's not. It's like more like it just aggregated little by little until it was the point where I just didn't see many options. if I wanted to put myself first. Like there are many options if I did not want to put myself first. But at that point, I was like, I actually do need to do this.
Yeah, we have one precious life and one precious finite amount of time to create, influence, impact, whatever it is. So kudos to you for having the courage. And while you say you don't have a process, I love that you shared you went for a walk. And the moments of clarity that can happen from a good walk in a place like Central Park is pretty cool, right? When you're in the middle of the concrete jungle.
Yeah.
And you have people to talk to, whether it's therapy or a coach, like all of these elements that allow us to create better decision paradigms, whether it's a formal process or it's just a time and space to think. Whether it was a formal process or not, you got to that place.
Yeah, you're right.
Through reflection.
Yeah. There was a lot of thinking, a lot of talking to people, and not just people who knew me in different ways. I think that was also very important. Like I talked to, like I said, my brother, for example, a lot. Friends that knew me not from work and friends that knew me from work and people who had known me before. And they're like, you kind of look miserable right now. Like what's going on? So like that helped, like having that support system of reflection. And we go back to the beginning, that mirror was helpful.
Well, having a community, which is amazing. I mean, you're working for a community-based organization, but having your own community of people who will give you the truth, not the truth you want to hear or, your truth, but they'll tell you and they'll allow you to ask questions and dig into. That's so powerful to have that and to have that tribe around you, that community. Most leaders don't need more advice. They simply need clarity. That's what the Vision to Victory scorecard is all about. It's free, it's fast, and it gives you a clear picture of where you are and what's next. Start now at clarityalignmentexecution.com. Let's make sure that your next step forward is the right one. What advice would you give someone who's walking not a similar path, but walking their path and wrestling with alignment, wrestling with this concept of identity and who they are and whether it's their role or whatever it is? What advice would you give someone?
Well, first off, I would say if they're already thinking about it, good for them. Because a lot of the times we just go down the route like zombies and not even thinking, not even noticing that something's wrong until the moment it's too close.
Too late, yeah.
So that's a first. But then a lot of the times we know too, like we know, you just have to give yourself enough space and quiet. And by quiet, I don't mean like go into a quiet room, but like quiet your thoughts a little bit. Like to me, writing was super helpful, still is, just writing. If you give yourself that distance to not react, but to actually act with purpose, you're going to find a lot more clarity. Like you said, the other thing would be community, talking to people and then the third one, which I actually found this out through my podcast. A lot of the times we think we're the only ones going through something like this. And it feels really lonely and it can feel really shameful. And it could be, especially for women, I would say, it could feel like we've been, especially if you're a high achieving woman, it's like you've been programmed to like, this is the way that success looks like. This is the way that I should go. This is the way that we need to work this hard and show up in this way. And if we don't do it, then it's a failure. For me, the moment I actually, and this was years before, not when I quit, but the moment I actually changed my definition of success was a moment where I started feeling even actually happy in what I was doing. So like knowing what success means to you, not necessarily to everyone else, which is very hard to define, but knowing that. And then, you're not alone. You're not alone. Like everyone thinks you're going through this and no one talks about it or like you're the only one. And what I learned with my podcast is I was getting emails from people I didn't know just saying like, oh my God, I thought I was crazy. I thought I was the only one that felt this way, or I was the only one that was going through this. And so I think it's a good reminder to know that, we're humans and you'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out. Yeah. And you're not alone. And
right.
If you thought it, other people have thought it. So you started a podcast and with the world's greatest titles we've already established. Did you start it to help other people or did you start it because you needed to help yourself or somewhere in the middle? Like what made you go, well, damn it, we're going to have a podcast?
I started it a little bit as a joke, but not really.
Awesome. Okay.
The
Tell me more.
joke was like I said, the first 2 weeks the first 2 weeks after I quit, I was like sleeping, mostly sleeping and crying. It was my longest relationship I had just stepped away from. So it was like a lot. Every time someone asked me, and again, I was like leading a big community. So like there are a lot of people that noticed I was quitting my job. It wasn't like, oh, she just kind of left. The moment everyone started asking me, like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I didn't have an answer for that because I did not know. And my answer, because I didn't have an answer, was to joke, I'm going to start a podcast and I'm going to call it Shit, I Just Quit My Job. That was my answer. And so people would laugh and I'd be like, oh, okay, that got a reaction. And then when I came out from under the rock I was, where I was like resting and sleeping, and I came back out for air, I started thinking the truth is I know that community is going to be very important and me figuring out what's next. Like, I know I'm going to want to talk to people to understand how, if you've changed careers, how you did it. If you left something big, how'd that go? I knew that a lot of the stories are always like, we put our best foot forward. We like, I was doing this and then magically now I'm doing this other thing. And that messy middle, and I kept that messy middle, was a little less discussed. I posted on LinkedIn. I was like, hey, I'm back. Been under a rock. I know. I want to talk to people who've changed careers, looking for some advice. Would you be open to talking on the record? I still didn't know I was going to do the podcast. I just thought I'm going to have these conversations. So maybe there's something there. And I got a bunch of responses. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. Like it's going to help me. And it does help me. And I have used it as a way to clarify my thoughts. Like I am the type of person who I would be thinking about fear, for example, for a long time and kind of gnawing at that idea of like, what is fear and why am I so afraid and what is this? And I was like, I want to talk to someone. So I'm going to bring them on the podcast. Who can I call? And I'm like, oh, yes, this really awesome person I know who is a professional skydiver. Let's talk to her.
That's cool.
Yeah. Like I started kind of getting that of like, what do I need? Because if I need it, this is again to the point of like, you're not alone. Like I need it. I'm sure other people will also need it. So that's kind of how it started.
I love the way you just frame that too, because, and I shared this when I was recording podcast trailers, like I want to share stories. I want others to tell their stories, moments of inflection and tools they've used and how they've navigated things and emerged better and had inflection points. But honestly, I want to learn. Like it's part of filling my cup, and I feel self-serving even saying that, but it's having a conversation like this one is rewarding and powerful. And like, I've got a page of notes that have nothing to do with the questions that I want to ask you that has to do with, oh, that was really cool. Like I need to learn from that, or I need to go study that. That's a good idea. And so I think anybody who's not a little bit self-serving in that regard, and it's not self-serving, but it's self-leading, like that ability to understand what you need too.
Well, if you think about it now, especially now that I'm teaching, if you think about it, like, how do the best startups come up? Like, how do entrepreneurs come up with their ideas? A lot of the times it's just solving your own problem.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, it was solving my own problem. But if I had that problem, other people had it.
So what are you doing now?
So I'm teaching. This came up a little kind of randomly, as things do. I am almost 2 years in June, it'll be 2 years since I quit. So I'm at my 2-year break-eversary, as I'm calling it.
I love that.
And I didn't think I was going to be 2 years out still here, still not with a full-time job. And I will tell you in a second why that is. But right now what I'm doing is I'm teaching a couple of classes at the college level. It came up as an opportunity, and I had a lot of people tell me, like, you'd be a good teacher. So I was open to trying things. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. So for the last 2 semesters, that's been taking a lot of my time, and I'm really enjoying it. And then the reason I've taken so long to like decide what I wanted to do is because I'm not going to go for anything. At this point in my life, I've decided, and it took me a lot of time to think, right? Like, what do I want to do? What do I care about? What are the things from my past job that I really loved? What are the things that I didn't love so much? Since earlier this year, I'm like, I'm open. I'm exploring what to do, quote unquote, full time. And I say quote unquote full time because I don't want to leave things that I love. So like, it could be a full-time gig, but I'm still going to want to teach and I'm still going to want to do my podcast. So it's still kind of like a little bit of a portfolio life, right? And I know that that's the path I want because I don't want, again, my identity to be one thing I get attached to. And the question was, well, what is that, right? What is that main thing? And I came to the conclusion after a lot of thought that I have 3 non-negotiables. It was a lot of thinking, and a lot of getting to know yourself. But I have my 3 non-negotiables. I need to work for something that has a mission. Like I cannot go just work at a company for profits. And I'm not saying the company needs to be a nonprofit. Elevate was a for-profit, and I believe in social enterprise. Like I want, but something that aligns with my view of wanting to have an impact in the world in a positive way. That's one. Second one is I don't want to be a cog in the machine. By that, I mean, I'm a builder. I like building things. I want to be at a place where I can build something, which means very likely early stage companies.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one, I want to work with smart people who are not assholes. That's it. Everything else is negotiable. So I'm navigating that world of like, where am I going to fall within those 3 non-negotiables? I'm going to spend more of my time in the next few years.
I love that. I think that's so powerful to have clearly articulated, as you said, with a lot of reflection, a lot of time. I mean, that's so clearly distilled, but that wasn't waking up at, on a random Tuesday and going, yeah, these are my non-negotiables.
Took me a long time.
Yeah, but I think that's really powerful. And I don't think most people have that figured out. I think to your point earlier, most of us, and I don't say this with a lens of indictment or judgment, but most people, you get into a track and then next thing you know, like the bumper walls have grown so tall, you don't even remember that there's an opportunity to get and look at and run on a different track that you're on. You get into a routine and life happens and, then you're 65 and you retire or whatever that is. 3 non-negotiables. Yep. Work with purpose that has purpose beyond making money. Not that it can't make money.
Preferably it should make money.
It should make money, right? Yeah. But a purpose beyond money, beyond the money. You're a builder. You don't want to be a cog. You want to be part of building something. And smart people that aren't assholes. That doesn't seem like that should be that hard. But it's incredibly hard.
It's really hard to find a 3 in 1. And I say this because I was lucky enough to have that. Like that is what I had for a long time. That was the way I worked at Elevate. Like I worked with smart people who were some of my best friends to this day. I worked on something with a purpose and a mission, and I was built. Like we were creating this thing. I had a hand in creating the culture. I had a hand in creating the products. Like we were creating this. The reason I think it took me so long is because there were so many other things, right? Like, but I had to go to the core of like, what were the reasons I really enjoyed my job? And what are the things I know I want? And like, I see my friends and like, they're very happy in different environments, but I know that's not for me. And that was also a very hard thing to realize, right? Like, cause I would immediately, especially after I quit, see like my friends in finance and be like, oh, that's what I should be doing. Like that's what, oh my God, I went wrong like 12 years ago and I should have just kept going down the path that clearly I hated. But, it had to be, I had to distill it. That's the way I would put it.
Yeah, comparison is the thief of joy. That's for sure.
Yep.
I'm curious because I think you've unpacked what purpose and mission means and building means. What is the definition of smart people who aren't assholes?
That's a good question. I would say I want to work with, for me, saying I want to work with smart people means I want to work with people who are curious and open. I don't want to work with people who think they know everything, which would be part of the asshole part, right? So like people who are open to being curious and open to exploring, but they know their stuff too. Like I don't You want to work with someone that you think is talented and skilled. So that's the smart part. The asshole part is, we talked about leadership at the beginning and the way I saw leadership. And there was one other thing that I forgot, which is like radical candor. That's the way I believe in leading. And I want that too. I want people who care about the other people they work with and the work they're doing. Doesn't necessarily mean you're all buddy buddies, but you care about it. You are open to hearing perspectives from other people. You're not, and again, you don't think you're the smartest person in the room all the time, because sometimes you will be, sometimes you won't. Like, and honestly, if you are, you might also learn from someone else. Like, it doesn't matter. So that's kind of what I mean. I mean, just good humans.
Good humans. It's too much to ask. It seems to be a rare and challenging thing to find.
Our common friend, Liesel, when I told her my 3 non-negotiables, we were talking a while ago, because this, has been a few months. She's like, that's going to be the hardest one. I'm like, you're not wrong.
You're not wrong. Somebody recently, this is maybe a year or so ago, shared this. I don't want to know what to call it. Maybe it's a process or metaphor, thought model, whatever, with me. And I've really latched onto it because it makes a lot of sense in the context of a radical candor, which is, and he was talking about their core values as an organization. And he says, we spend a lot of time talking about being kind, not nice. Like, very intense. We are kind, but not nice. Nice is, oh, it's so good to see you. And like, it's surface. It's not real. It doesn't say what needs to be said. Kind says what needs to be said, which is radical candor. Like, but it's not personal. I'm going to tell you the kind thing because it's in your best interest or in the best interest of the mission. And that's what I've been wrestling with and chewing on a lot around. We want to be kind, not nice. And for what it's worth, that one, I think Liesel's right. The hard one's going to be the smart non-assholes, but they're there. And I'm sure they're out there.
I've, been talking to a bunch of people who I believe fit those categories, and just kind of figuring out where I land.
Good for you. All right. I'm going to switch to some rapid fire questions because I'm really curious. I normally ask this question, what's a book every leader should read? But let me change this. What's a book every human should read?
Oh, geez. The Little Prince.
Ooh, why? Tell me more.
You'll notice I actually have it tattooed on my arm. It's my favorite book. I know it's a kid's book, but it's so deep in fable, and it just has so many things, from the aspect of creativity to the aspect of like what really matters you can't really see with your eyes. It talks about that kindness, it talks about empathy, like that stuff. That's what I would say, honestly, and also because it's my favorite book and it's very short, so you would read it really quickly.
There's no wrong answer. There's your answer, and I like those reasons. And I have one of my favorites is also a fable, and it's easy to read. And a lot of people go, "Oh, it's so simple," and it's okay. I like it, and it means something to me. The Alchemist.
Oh, I love The Alchemist. Yes, big read.
And I read it once a year because it makes me think.
Yeah,
it makes me step back and reflect. But I haven't read The Little Prince in years and years. We'll put a link in the show notes. But I'm going to go read that because I can probably finish it in a very quick term. What is the single best leadership advice or pearl of wisdom that you've ever received?
Find your own definition of success, which is really hard. I don't know how, no one told me how to do it, but they told me I should.
Yeah, it's like from on high. You should go find your own. How do I do that? You'll figure it out. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, but I would say that.
What's a daily practice or routine that you will not skip no matter what?
Ooh, I don't know that I have anything that I will not skip. I mean, besides showering, brushing my teeth, but like that type. But I have a few things I do or try to do. And this was part of what I learned or started through this big process. The Artist's Way, someone recommended it. I started reading it and doing that kind of journey. Didn't finish it, but I did stick with the 3 pages. Write 3 pages every morning. Just dump your thoughts into 3 pages every morning so that you can start with a little clear mind. So I usually do that, then I meditate. And then the next thing is, I don't do this every day, but I'm a big runner, so I run.
Good for you. That's awesome. Well, and maybe I shouldn't say it as every day, no matter what, but like those behaviors or patterns that ground you and bring you back to yourself. Those are cool. And I have not read that, The Artist's Way. I'm going to have to read that. What's a leadership myth that you would like to debunk that you think is absolute BS?
I feel like I have so many that I keep always saying that's BS, but I am blanking right now. I think there's still the aspect of you can't be human. You have to show, if you're a leader, you have to show this like strength and that you have everything together. And I think that's BS. I think we're all human and you have to have the humanness. That's part of leadership. I also think, and I would not say, I don't know what people say like is the number one quality of a leader, but to me, I think one that's very undervalued is empathy. People say that doesn't matter. That's not true. Like that, I would say that's probably it.
I would completely agree with you. And I think it takes a lot of work, but it is absolutely, and I agree with you on the vulnerability and authenticity. I think if you're not showing up just in a real manner, people can tell. Like they can tell and they know when you really care.
And being vulnerable does not mean being a hot mess. You know, like I think people confuse that. Like being vulnerable does not mean oversharing. It means being human and letting flaws come through and letting a little bit of reality come through.
Yeah, I like the way you said that. It's not, I might say and so I'm agreeing with you, but I might use different language. Being vulnerable does not mean being weak. It is actually to be stronger because you are confident enough to say, I don't know, I don't feel good, whatever that is. And that authenticity is what attracts other people or lets them know they can trust you. I can't trust someone who is got a veneer and isn't real. So I agree with you. It's not a hot mess. It's not like, let me tell you everything. I can tell you that I'm not, what's not good, where I'm struggling.
Yep.
All right. What's your leadership superpower?
I have a spidey sense for people. I'm very good, I think, at understanding people. And it's not, yes, I have a big sense of empathy. Like I have cultivated that because I do believe you can cultivate it. But I think it's my curiosity. So like I'm so curious about humans. Like I'm fascinated by how we think and why we act the way we act. Like I can go down rabbit holes. And I think that has helped me kind of really understand, get a good sense of people. And I think that would be it.
You put in some of the materials you sent over to me before that you're just fascinated by how weird we are as humans. And I love that. Like when you say that, what does that mean? Like what is weird?
I don't know. We act in ways that sometimes it's like, like the authenticity and vulnerability, right? Like we all feel all these things, but then we act like we don't. And like, why? Or we all think we're the only ones doing X, Y, or Z. Or we all think at some point that we're the center of the universe. We're not. Like all of these convoluted things in our mind that it's just like, we're so weird.
Yes, we are. And you can hold two ideas that are in complete disagreement in your mind and reserve the right to change your mind. And it's just weird. And that's okay.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's what makes us interesting.
How do you define success? So now you've been told, go forth and, define success for yourself. What is your definition of success today?
It's about feeling good with myself. Like it's kind of basic, but like I used to define it by like how much money am I going to make or what title am I going to have? Yes, I need to have, like, I know the type of lifestyle I want to have and I want to have that. Like that's part of it. But it is about feeling content. Like for much of my life, and I don't think the word content is used enough. For much of my life, I felt like I needed to follow these like really big highs. They're overrated because, they all end. Like Buddhist philosophy says, nothing is permanent, ups and downs. So I want that contentness. I want some to me, success is feeling stable, content, and interested. Like that my brain is being engaged.
I like that word, interested. Like not interesting,
No.
which is about what you're portraying to others, but being interested. I like that. That's cool. Yeah. What's a cause or an organization that you are passionate about supporting?
Oh, a lot. Still a lot of girl stuff. So Girl Scouts, particularly in New York, was very involved with them for a while. I'm a big animal person, so tend to gravitate that way. And education. So it usually ends up being a tie between girls and education and combining those. So a lot of like those type of organizations, there's great ones, Girls Inc., Girl Scouts, Etra Girls, which is on mentoring. I think they're fantastic. So I would say that.
We'll put some of those links in the show notes for folks to check out as well, because, there's just, I have a belief that, part of our obligation here for occupying our skin and the space on earth is to serve and to make it better because of our being here, not to extract value from everything, but to actually input value, because 100 years from now, nobody's going to care, but we need to have made an impact, and somebody might care if we do it right, if we create enough value. If not, somebody will be better for having done it. Where can our audience connect with you? What's the best way to check out not other than like specifically, we're going to link your podcast, because like people need to know if they're navigating things. There is a resource, and they are not alone. What are some other ways that people can connect with you?
LinkedIn, Maricella Herrera Avila. That's the easiest because that's where I get all my stuff. Instagram for my podcast at Quit My Job Pod. And then the podcast, Substack. I'm on Substack too. That's actually a good one because that's where I host my podcast. So it's both the podcast and my writing.
Thank you. Like from the bottom of my heart, thank you for taking time to share your story, your journey. I've got literally a page of notes here, things that I want to go think about. I'm going to go pick up a copy of The Little Prince tonight. And I am just so happy that you gave a little bit of your precious time to us to share your story and the lessons you've learned along the way.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Hey, before you go, if this episode helped you see leadership differently, I have 3 personal requests. First, and this is the most important one, share this with one leader who needs it. Think of someone in your network who's frustrated with their team's execution or is trying to scale their own impact. Copy this episode link right now and text them, hey, I just listened to this episode and I think you'll get real value from it. That simple act of sharing, that is servant leadership in action. Second, subscribe to Leadership Unlocked. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite podcast player, just hit subscribe or the follow button. That way you won't miss the next episode, and it helps us reach more leaders like you. And third, if you're willing, this would be a huge help for us. Leave a 5-star rating and write a quick review. I know it takes 60 seconds of your time, but here's what it does. It helps other leaders discover the show. Every rating, every review, it's how we expand our impact together. So those 3 things, share with a friend, subscribe, leave a review. I'm deeply appreciative, and that would give us so much help. Thanks for being part of the Leadership Unlocked community. Now go create some clarity for others.